schools and the harm they caused.
For more than a century, tens of thousands of indigenous children were taken from their communities and forced into boarding schools run by the U.S. government, specifically the Department of the Interior and religious institutions.
Deb Haaland is Secretary of the Interior and a member of the Laguna Pueblo tribe. In 2021, she launched the Federal Indian Boarding School Initiative.
The federal policies that attempted to wipe out Native identity, language, and culture continue to manifest in the pain tribal communities face today, including cycles of violence and abuse, disappearance of indigenous people, premature deaths, poverty and loss of wealth, mental health disorders, and substance abuse.
The Federal Indian Boarding School Initiative created 2 reports investigating the consequences of the boarding school system. Former students from across the country shared their stories. And a warning, some of them described sexual violence and child abuse, and it would be difficult for some listeners to hear.
I remember being afraid to sleep at night, fearful of the matron's son who walked the halls at night, using a flashlight to spot me in bed. He touched me like no child should ever be touched.
Ramona Klein is one of the many survivors who spoke at a hearing for a bill that's making its way through Congress, called the Truth and Healing Commission on Indian Boarding School Policies Act. She went to a school at Fort Totten in North Dakota starting in 1954 when she was 7 years old.
I remember being hit by the matron with a big green paddle that everyone called the Board of Education, while I knelt on either a broomstick or a mop stick with my arms outstretched from my body. I remember thinking, you will not get the best of me. And I was determined not to cry.
Federal Indian boarding school policy, the pain it has caused, will always be a significant mark of shame, a blot on American history.
In October, President Joe Biden made a formal apology to Native people.
I have a solemn responsibility to be the first president to formally apologize to the Native peoples, Native Americans, Native Hawaiians, Native Alaskans, and federal Indian boarding schools. It's long overdue.
Mary Annette Pember has reported on boarding schools for over 20 years. She's a national correspondent for Indian Country Today, now known as ICT, which published the first independently owned Native American newspaper in the country. Much of Mary Annette's work focuses on the role the Catholic Church played in shaping federal policy towards Native people. In 2022, she interviewed the founder of Indian Country Today, Tim Gallego, who was a student at Red Cloud School during World War II.
Those priests and nuns knew how to use a leather belt, and they used it frequently on the kids. So we experienced the abuse, physical abuse, right from the very beginning.
His memories were still vivid, even after 80 years.
There were priests and there were brothers and some of the sisters that were sexually abusing the children there.